Okay, you guys should have this worksheet in front of you for notes for 7.6. All of these problems are set up ax squared plus bx plus c. So when I refer to term a or b or c, I mean the a is the one that's in front of the x squared. This is standard form. The b is the one that's in front of the x, and the c is the constant. So what we need to do when our a term is not 1, which it's been 1 in 7.5, so that's what's new in lesson 7.6. The a term is no longer just 1. We've got things like 6. First, you need to check and see if there are any common factors between your a, b, and c terms. And if there are, factor them out first. So we can pull out the greatest common factor from all three of these terms is 6. So go ahead and pull out a 6. And that leaves, when you reverse distribute, it leaves x squared minus 2x minus 3. And then from there, you kind of ignore the 6. I mean, it's still there, but you don't do anything with it. And then you factor the x squared minus 2x minus 3 as if that's the only problem that's there. So you know that if it's x squared, then you have x's at the front. If you know that you need it to multiply to be 3, and add to be negative 3, and add to be negative 2, you can list out the factors if you want. The factors of 3 are just 3 and 1. So you know it's going to be 3 and 1. And you know that since it's negative 3, one of these is going to be negative. And because when you add, it's negative 2, your 3 needs to be the negative 1. And so this is it. All right. On number 2, we can factor out a 5. So pull out that 5, and that would leave x squared minus 3x minus 10. And then we are going to factor, ignoring the 5 that's out front, just the rest of it. So x squared would mean x's. Factors of 10 are either 10 and 1 or 5 and 2. And we know that our middle term, when added, needs to be negative 3. So that's going to be the 5 and 2. And let's go ahead and figure out, because it's a negative when you multiply, one of these has to be negative. And when you add, negative 3 is the answer, so our bigger number needs to be negative. So you're done there. All right, try number 3. The greatest common factor we can pull out there is a 9. So if you pull out a 9, it leaves just x squared minus 4x plus 3. X is in front. The only factors of 3 are 3 and 1, so we know it's going to be a 3 and a 1. And we know that when we multiply, we need it to be positive, but when we add it, it's a greater negative. So this combination means a negative times a negative. That's the only way to get a positive when you multiply, and a greater negative when you add. All right, let's take a look at the next one. The next one is a different coefficient, leading coefficient than 1, but we can't pull anything out. There are no greatest common factors here. So we're going to have to do this one a different way. I'm going to show you the diamond method for part of it, and then I'm kind of going to branch it off and show you a different way for the rest. So for the diamond method, you would take your a term, which is 4, and your c term, which is 3, and you would multiply them together. So this is a times c. So 4 times 3 is 12. For the bottom one, you would just put your b term, which your b term here is 13. So I'm going to put 13 here. All right, so what two factors of 12 equal 13? Let's see. There are, you can go ahead and use this space if you want, 12 and 1, 6 and 2, 3 and 4. Those are the only factors that equal 12. So which ones of these would add up to 13 if you add? 12 and 1 are 13. This one is not, and this one is not. So we know we're going to use 12 and 1. Okay, so we're going to use 12 and 1. And then here's where it kind of goes differently. So I want you to remember the 12 and 1, And those are your middle two terms. It's like when you FOIL, it's like the O and the I. So I want you to rewrite the F if you FOILed, that is 4x squared. And I want you to write the L if you FOILed, which is 3. And then the O and the I terms are the two that we came up with over here. And those actually are like terms that have an x on the end. So 1x and 12x. So you are going to put plus 1x and plus 12x. All right, now this last part is weird. You can't have a quadnomial. We're actually going to break it down and just have two sets of parentheses. So I want you to go ahead and just by grouping, just put parentheses around each of the first two terms and then a parenthesis around each of the next two terms. That's positive for you, by the way. Okay, now we are going to pull out the greatest common factor of each of these sets of parentheses. So the only thing we can pull out of these two is just x. And then if you reverse distribute the rest, you would have 4x and 1. What can we pull out of these two? The greatest common factor is 3. So I'm going to pull out a 3. And then if you would reverse it, or reverse distribute it, it would be 4x and 1. And you know you've done it right if what's inside the parentheses are the same. So if what's inside the parentheses are the same, you did it right. And that is one of your binomials for your answer. The other binomial part of your answer is what's out front of each one. So your answer is x plus 3, because that's what's here and here, and 4x plus 1, because that is what you factored twice and got the same answer of. So this is your final answer. It's a lot of work. All right, let's try another one of those. This was a mistake, but it should be fixed on your paper, so just ignore what I have here. All right, so what you want to do is you want to see what we can get when we multiply 6 and negative 20. So 6 times negative 20 is going to go into our top number here. 6, I don't even know what it is. 6 times negative 20 is negative 120. And then our B term is negative 7. So we want to think of numbers that when you multiply, you get negative 120, and when you add, you get negative 7. So we can list all the factors out, and you should push pause and go ahead and do that, because I already know what it is, and to save time on the video, I'm going to go ahead and write them in. But you push pause and fill out all the factors of 120 that equal to 7. Okay, if you did not push pause, I think I need to double check that I'm right, but I think it's 15 and 8. So 15 times 8, yeah. Okay, so you've got a 15 and an 8, but remember it has to add to be negative 7. So I believe we need the negative to be the 15, because negative 15 plus 8 is negative 7, and negative 15 times 8 is negative 120. So these are going to be our O and I in the FOIL terms. All right, so come back over to here. Everybody rewrite your A term, or sorry, your F if you FOILed, which is 6x squared, and your L, which is negative 20. And then in the middle, we have our middle two terms that we did here, which is negative 15x and positive 8x. So negative 15x and positive 8x. And then by grouping, you are going to just put parentheses around the first two and then around the next two. And now I want you to pull out the greatest common factor. The greatest common factor of 6x squared and negative 15x is 3x. And then we're going to reverse distribute it. That would be 2x, and that would be minus 5. All right, what is the greatest common factor of 8x and minus 20? Should be 4. So if we pull out a 4, that would leave 2x and minus 5. And again, if you got the same answer here and here, you did it right. And the other binomial we're looking for are the numbers out front. So your answer is 3x plus 4 and 2x minus 5.